Welcome. Thank you all for coming. We are very excited to get this lecture series started. My name is Grace Amon, and I'm a park planner with the City of Raleigh and the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department, part of the Dix Park planning team. Dix Park staff has been working with the Urban Design Center on this lecture series to bring in local and national experts to challenge us to think bold for the planning process as well as the future of Dix Park and the city as a whole. We are currently working on a scope with finalizing a scope with Michael Van Valkenburg Associates, our design team, and anticipate kicking off the master plan process this summer. This lecture series is a great way for us to get the conversation started for that process. If anyone has questions specific to Dix Park, we're happy, Kate Pierce and I are happy to talk to you after the lecture is over. We would like to thank the Dix Park Conservancy. They are sponsoring the lecture series. Would also like to thank Jim Goodman and Bill Pageant, members of our Conservancy that are here, as well as members of the advisory committee. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charles.
Good afternoon. Good to see we have a good crowd today. So this year, we are hosting a unique lecture series that is intended to promote bold ideas, issues, and topics important to the development of Dix Park. Topics include inclusivity, ecology, access, arts and culture, history, transportation, economic development, and connectivity, among others. This series is produced in conjunction with the already established and incredibly successful monthly lunchtime lecture series hosted by the City of Raleigh Urban Design Center, which is called the UDC Talks. The UDC Talks is, as I said, very successful, and it typically attracts design professionals, government officials, and members of the general public. We are hosting both lunchtime and evening talks throughout the series this year. Tonight's lecture at CAM will feature urban designer, teacher, and writer Ken Greenberg as he discusses the role of the public realm in generating vibrant, successful, and equitable cities. This afternoon, we are very fortunate to have Ali Khalifa here to talk about inventive culture and Raleigh's future. Ali is addicted to inventive culture. Trained as both an engineer and a designer, Ali has traveled extensively for 19 years to manufacture sporting goods design and technologies. His collaborations have garnered more than 16 patents, been nominated for a Grammy Award, and exhibited in the Louvre. Ali is a co-founder of Designbox, a leading multidisciplinary workspace of creative professionals. Additionally, he founded and leads SPARKcon, the nation's largest open source festival that promotes local creative culture. As a result, he has garnered significant attention as a voice for the creative community, leading to lectures worldwide. Please join me in welcoming Ali Khalifa.
Well, I don't know how a lunchtime lecture series works. I don't see anyone with lunch. So, food for thought, I guess. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Urban Design Center, the Dix Park Conservancy, Mr. Goodman, everyone for just taking time to really imagine the future. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of optics about how we've been doing things and how we've been participating. But obviously, the success of the emergence of creativity in downtown is a a multiverse of different approaches and tactics that have been working. I'll just show you a little bit about how we've been doing things before I jump into some thoughts about maybe what we can do at Dix. So we've always found that there always has to be an ecosystem. There has to be a group of things that are happening at once. And so we always see kind of a three-legged stool that the only way we have really great creativity in-house is that we have a real commitment to our community. And the only things that really can happen out of that is then to have once in a while, some launches of really pushing the way forward. And it just seems, after a while, we realize that the commonality of that is inventive culture. That if we focus on the people and making sure that the culture locally and in spheres going out beyond that can inspire inventive culture, then all of a sudden everything starts to happen really well for us. So on the consulting side, we do a lot of design engineering, innovation, branding, both for local companies as well as global companies. A lot of it is on the invention development side. I see Linda Dallas there. I remember getting really excited because she likes math and art, and so do I. So just some examples. After our recent acquisition of one of our companies, we started working for Bobble. So we designed this bottle insulated thing for 7th Generation, which is a local company, and it was great to start seeing that I actually can have a client that's within 300 miles. That's a nice, refreshing thing. This was just launched in the Netherlands. It's the first cradle-to-cradle certified design for disassembly garment. This is for a large conglomerate called CNA Foundation, where we look at how biological nutrient and technical nutrient can happen in a circular economy, so that we design things so that we actually take them back. It's one of the hardest things to do as a designer after you're trained to make sure things don't fall apart, is then to design how they're going to fall apart properly. I've also been working a lot on developing world projects. This just won an award with Essilor. This is for giving vision to the rural communities of India. With this simple pair of glasses, you can kind of spin them until things look right, and someone can quickly read what your vision is, snap some pair of glasses, put them back in his rucksack, and go to the next door. We're finding right now that's really an important part of how to leverage technology, is to start thinking about how can we take care of those that are harder to reach and have harder access to things. And this is where design can be a force for good. Additionally, hey, how are you? Additionally, there's the possibility for thinking about different ways that we can harness energy. So this is for really up in the northern parts of China, where they're burning coal inside and have record levels of emphysema because of inhaling all this coal inside. So a solar cooker can be shared by 2 or 3 homes, boil stuff, charge up a PV so you can get on the internet and do all kinds of things. The key thing here was, again, for rural communities, it's all about flat packing. Anyone can design something like this, but to design it like IKEA style can save maybe 75% of the cost of people getting technology like this. On the launch side, we've done a variety of things, but I think most recent, we work, 7th Generation acquired our company Gamila, which was based on coffee and tea gourmet products. It all started off because there was a gentleman, Ty, over at the Third Place Coffee House, who asked me for to design a teapot, and he didn't need a teapot. And then Rich got involved, and it wasn't a teapot at all, it was a tea infuser. And after that, we had a tea stick, and then it was on Gizmodo, and before we knew it, we were all of a sudden like, they were selling their coffee shop, and we were in business together selling tea infusers. Later on, coffee presses and those things like that, getting some fun with Kickstarter, and eventually that led to really just a huge thing. It's amazing, like sitting down for tea at the Third Place, what that can lead to. And on the community side, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but Designbox has been something that we've been floating around town. We keep bouncing every 3 to 5 years, depending on the lease, trying to find the new place that's going to be like hard to figure out how to get people to park at or something like that. But so we were in the warehouse district until about a year ago. Now we're in the Glenwood South area and enjoying that. I'll show you a little bit some of the things that we've been doing. I mean, we've been able to experiment. We've used Designbox as kind of like a test bed for doing a lot of things, whether it's like spontaneous yoga classes or can retail really work? And a lot of these things we would test for a while until we found someone who could take that up. Co-working, we're one of the earliest co-working spaces. And once that became a business model, then it was time for us to get out. But we've always felt like there had to be a design garden, something that wasn't a client project, wasn't anything else, but it's something that we just thought was interesting. And as long as we had something in the garden, then good things happen. I've used the analogy before that the best chefs I know have a garden. Because you might show up with a piece of fish for dinner or something like that, but they might say, oh, you know what, the time just came up and I got these cherry tomatoes. And before you know it, because they have a garden going, things get better. So we've realized that we always have to have something in the garden. Designbox has been really fun for that. So been able to have some fun lectures, pole dancing, stuffed kitty cats. You name it, we've really tried it there. One of the earliest things that my wife, Beth, and I had really got inspired by was a campaign called Keep Abreast. It was something I'd seen in Munich and brought it here. And we had a dear friend that was suffering with breast cancer, and we didn't know how to really react to it, so what we decided to do is to address it full on. And so Keep Abreast is a campaign where one group of people were casting their torsos. Then we passed those torsos on to, or put the cast to these, to a bunch of different artists, and from those artists, then they created something that was then auctioned off, and then those actually went around town. So what happened, we had 3 different communities. We had people really interested in public health, we had artists, and then we had the medical community, all intersect and galvanize around a single topic. This is a really powerful lesson for me, that really if you want to have a successful event, or you want to start something new, and you really need to galvanize the public, you need to think about different networks that normally don't hang out and make them hang out. And this led to a lot more thinking about how else we can do that, including starting a circus downtown. Why not? Maximus Circus was one of the events that we did for July 4th. I've never produced a circus before or since, but it was certainly interesting, and it's just so exciting to see that if you put an idea out there in Raleigh, that if you can execute and you build up some relationships, anything's possible. Even having a circus in the middle of Raleigh on July 4th, and a woman wearing a lamb's head that was on fire. That was just... I see Dan here, I see Dan Howe, and Dan's an inspiration. One of the things that we had addressed as a community was an early foray into Dix Park. When the convention center was being excavated, there was 200,000 cubic yards of dirt that needed a home. And Mr. Crowder, who we deeply miss, came to our neighborhood and said, listen, what do you guys think about this? They're thinking about dumping all this dirt right behind your neighborhood. I live on Kirby Street, which is adjoining there. And we said, great, we want the dirt. We love dirt, but let's not do the 4.2 feet or whatever it was, evenly dispersed, that takes out, I don't know how many acres of trees. Let's do something really fun and creative with that dirt. And so this got to be known as the Dix Dirt Project. I think we facilitated at the Urban Design Center about 85 or 100 people or something like that. We had bulldozer operators sitting next to soccer moms, sitting next to landscape architects, and we made sure each table, using a Synectics approach, had their chance to really have some input on it. And it was really fascinating. Again, it was like these unlikely people that were all of a sudden rubbing elbows. And I remember one of the things that happened was one of the mothers that was there, and she had children, said, listen, while my one son is playing soccer, my little girl just keeps running the opposite direction. Can we just put a hill to slow her down? And bulldozer operator perked up right away, because, yo, we can make a bowl. I can just keep like dumping dirt in a big old circle around that, and we can slow that one down, don't you worry, and that'll be easy for us. And these kinds of things then started to precipitate a bunch of ideas. I mean, a lot was planned there. I think there were really 3 phases. 2 were completed. The 3rd phase, I think that dirt ended up going to 540. But it was really exciting to see that there was a possibility to imagine Dix property with a bunch of people who have completely different agendas and have no thought about working together, all of a sudden coming together with a single design that was executed and is there now. And in fact, the Vantage Peak, which is up here in this area, is a fantastic place to go. In fact, I think a lot of high school romantic couples like to go up there. One of the things that, I'm going to talk a little bit later about SPARKcon, but one of the things that came out of SPARKcon was Mayor Meeker then saying, listen, you just facilitated all these thousands of people in downtown Raleigh. What did you learn? And we did actually publish something called the SPARKcon Comment. It was published in The Independent, and it was facilitating all the different groups that we had there. Again, I'll get a little bit more into detail about that. But from that, I said, well, we had these 4 main groups, and like the arts people said they needed more technology. That's where they get inspired. And the technology people said they needed art, because that's how they get inspired. And there's a lot of independent businesses that say, we need more activity, we need more stuff happening. And then everyone agreed that inclusivity was kind of that main glue that put it together. So City Plaza had a variety of different designs. We won't go into that, but there were different things going on. But the mayor had asked for us to start reimagining what is Raleigh's main square. What kind of art should be there? And it was really interesting. Again, we facilitated about 100 people, all from different professions, different connections with the city. And the result that almost every table came to was, let's make it a stage for Raleigh. How can our ultimate expression be that this is the playground where we can show what we got? And that it has to be friendly and have either gas or electricity or internet or light or projections or things like that. And that's what we went and did. Again, it was a collaborative process that led to this. This is the city's City Plaza. So SPARKcon had kind of an interesting origin story. I'm like, my son's into superheroes, so now I know all about origin stories. But originally we saw, I believe it's Inc. magazine calling Raleigh the most creative place in America. And we were all sitting at the Designbox table, and then we got really depressed. It's like, man, we keep imagining it's like somewhere else, it's better somewhere else, and there's no way, this is the best it gets. I have to credit Paul Frederick, because as a cartoonist, I think he can say truth better than almost anyone I know. And he said, well, we don't have a river in Raleigh, but everyone keeps saying we're creative. Let's just claim that as a river. And I couldn't, it's like the ice pick to the forehead that I couldn't get out. It wouldn't leave me. So finally, a week later, I came back with a little one-pager, and my wife Beth and I really started thinking about what does it mean to support creative culture, and can Raleigh be the creative hub of the South? And if it is the creative hub of the South, what does that mean? How do you both nurture and showcase it? So, several years later, we're more than a decade into different SPARKcons. What started off with, it was a sold-out event year one with 250 people, and we couldn't believe it. And I think this year we were, Brandon, I don't know, 60 to 70,000 people, and that's all happened through an open source system. It's all volunteer driven. It's an incredible thing, and the amount of stories like Enso Movement, or so many people I could talk about that we've just seen just do remarkable things, like enter saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of it, and all of a sudden you watch them just develop their skills. So in the beginning, what we thought SPARKcon was a festival. And what we realized later on is that it's a leadership development program for creative professionals. Once we changed our mind about that and realized, let's not focus on the thing, let's focus on the people that will do the thing, the whole thing blew up. I mean, it really scaled unbelievably. So we have a basic, there's a few different elements to talk about here. Number one is like the four pillars is the arts, technology, independent business, and inclusivity. It's loosely based on Richard Florida's research, not necessarily his conclusions, but his research I thought was very good. But we also then started studying different organization models that allow things to scale very quickly. And the starfish model is something you'll see from the women's suffrage movement to civil rights to a lot of the stuff that's happening these days for some reason. But that there's generally a planner and a communicator. There's someone who's got the spreadsheet, and there's someone who goes out to the bars and talks about all the great stuff they're doing. And those people have to be like joined at the hip, but it can't be the same person. And we realized very quickly in SPARKcon, when people said they could do both, they just imploded like 6 to 7 weeks later. There'd be a big cry, But we realized if you had those two people together, you could really accomplish amazing things. And what we basically said is every Spark had to absorb this starfish model. So in addition, we have this DNA, which is, hey, if you're going to raise funds, or you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to plan an event, you need to think about liability. All those things, there's actually kind of a basic DNA on how to do a Spark. Then tapping existing networks. So when Circus Spark said that they wanted to start off, it was, okay, but it's not just you two. I think Casey has reminded me many times that it can't just be two girls saying we want to do Circus Spark. It's like, where are the jugglers in Garner? I know there are some. And where are all the other different people that are out there, and how can we start engaging that? So you're not recreating a network, you are finding all the ones. And then finally, I think probably one of the most important things is that regular heartbeat, that every Tuesday at 7 p.m. at Was the Borough is where Circus Park would do their organization meetings, or whatever it is. And as long as that was something that I could send people to, and all those meetings were published, open, and available, then all of a sudden, it became less cliquey, everyone felt welcome to join in. And so each starfish is basically a spark. Every year we have no idea in SPARKcon what's gonna happen. We don't know what sparks or how. So on to Dix Park, because that was sort of the idea. It was like if SPARKcon was gonna like invade Dix Park, what would happen? I don't know. But I started thinking about what is Dix Park, and especially within the realm of creativity. So Michael Paz is one of my favorite design school professors, and he always talked about like being creative is like squeezing a sponge, like you gotta squeeze those ideas out. And that's where the real brilliant breakthrough, the cool thoughts, all that stuff, and it's like squeezing a sponge. But where do you soak it, right? How do we soak the sponge? I think ultimately Dix is where we're going to soak the sponge. I think this is where we get inspired, we get re-energized. This is where we're going to get new ideas, see things we didn't expect. We go back to work, we go back to our families, and we can start squeezing that sponge again. I think that ultimately should really be the vision for Dix. How do we fill our sponges? So there's been a lot of discussion about big. Dix is big. It's 300 acres, it's big. And we want big ideas and everything, and I've just heard lots and lots of things about big in Dix. And I've been trying to wrap my head around what is big. Because ultimately we're just single people, right? And we're experiencing things for ourselves. So what does big mean in the context of that? I thought about the Court of the Carolinas, or Court of North Carolina now, at NC State. And I remember looking at these crazy paths, these crazy brick paths, trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. Like, why would you design these paths to be all squirrely? They don't really end up right. They don't kind of like meet up like they're supposed to. The whole thing looks bizarre. But everyone uses them. Everyone uses those paths. And I remember inquiring with the university architect about what is up with those paths. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And her response was, we just researched where all the muddy paths were, and we just bricked them. I mean, wherever there was mud is like where people were walking, because that's the way they wanted to go. So all we did was we just bricked where people are already going. I think we can do that with Dix. Can we brick what's already happening there? I mean, instead of being a foreign idea that comes from Europe or from Asia or whatever about what a park is, maybe actually maybe the answer to the park is that it's already there, it's already happened, and maybe we need to start recognizing what people are already doing there, and maybe we need to just formalize that slightly. So how do we celebrate and inspire what we're going to do? I think there's several different things that Dix has to offer us as clues about what's been happening there. And so here are just some quick ideas. These are going to be rapid fire, and I'm not going to claim any of these are good ideas. But that's next, right? First, we're just going to talk about what are some ideas. We have to start off with the heritage of Dix. There's no way we can not think about Dorothea Dix, or how the whole land came to be. I mean, Kate's tour gives a wonderful idea and history about how things came to be. And if you haven't done that, I highly recommend making Kate walk miles every day to do that. But it's a fantastic journey. It's not necessarily all happy. And especially when we look at what is the heritage of how Dix Park came to be, and then where did it go, and what are we doing with our mental health professionals and mental health sufferers and all that stuff. It might not be the happiest story, but it's a real story, and we can't gloss over it. So I was inspired by something that happens in Australia once a year, which is the National Saree Day. So I don't know if has anyone heard of National Saree Day? So it's a way to acknowledge that the way the Aboriginals were treated was really deplorable. People have now educated themselves, they know better, and as a result, now it's something that they embrace. I mean, you have to embrace it. So there's all kinds of installations that happen throughout Australia on National Saree Day. It's skywriting, it's lots of things with hands, you'll see a lot of hand symbols, but all kinds of things about what being sorry is and how that's essential to moving on. To be able to celebrate, we have to acknowledge. I'm wondering if Dorothea Dix needs a Saree Day. Okay, we're starting off with the ugly stuff first. Okay. So, before I moved into my house, I understood that plastic bags were floating all over Kirby Street from the landfill. It's an unlined landfill. A lot of stuff coming in from the bio departments of NC State, and I remember seeing some questionable stuff dripping into the creek and all that stuff years ago. I don't know exactly what was going on there, but we know it was a landfill, and we know it was used. And I mean, what is the landfill, and what is that about? I think that's a very interesting thing. I mean, can we maybe do an excavation, maybe a tunnel, maybe some pathway? You can actually see what this landfill is about. What happened to that stuff? Where's it going? What's the gas concentration? What is, we could look at it from a geological perspective. We could look at it from a social perspective. The amount of, we know that there's a lot of graves that are there that are not marked. We know that there's a lot of history there. We know there's Civil War history there. Is there a way we can just dig one big slab and just take a look? Some people are fans of drones. Some people are not. But I think it's safe to say drones are dominating a certain part of Dix, known as the Big Field. I think it's great. I mean, I remember one of my friends bumped into a Japanese gentleman who was walking around with his drones, and they said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, this is my golf." It's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Well, I get to buy lots of fancy equipment, and I get to just walk around outside. My friends play golf. I play with the drone. This is my golf." I think that was actually kind of a really interesting insight. But if we have drones, and if drones is a thing, why don't we encourage that? Let's make an airstrip. Like maybe some kind of miniature thing like you see in the Netherlands or whatever, like maybe a miniature city or a miniature airport, but let's go with it. Those people are out there. Those people love that park. Those are probably going to be the biggest advocates for our park because they're there probably more than anyone I know. Certainly, in earlier days, I saw a lot of canine training happening in that area. There's some pretty scary stories about using inmates in the early days and things like that. I don't know if any of that was true, but it's a part of the legacy of the park too. So can we do something, I don't know, maybe we can make just like a total agility park. Maybe we can just let's take that area and then now formalize it for something that's not just like hunting for criminals, but maybe doing something that's a little bit more engaging and fun. I don't know how many times, again, living next to Dix, I see trucks coming up all the time carrying these bouncy castles. Like, enough already with the bouncy castles. And I've got 2 kids that love, they want to bounce, just put a big old pillow. So at 3 Bears, I guess there's this enormous pillow that people can bounce on. Let's stop hauling all these things. Let's make the biggest bounce Raleigh's ever seen or the world's ever seen and not have to be hauling it, deploying it, and all that other stuff. There's a certain part of Dix here towards the Boylan Heights area which has a lot of these residences, and I think that's a really interesting opportunity. What does it mean to have like a little village and for people to be living there? In Glen Echo Park, which I always kind of think is the DC's Pullen Park, they have a lot of these, one section has all these artist yurts. So if you're a ceramic artist or whatever else, you can be an artist in residence, and part of it is that you have to teach classes as well as be there. But can we also have an innovator in residence? Can we have an arborist in residence? Can you make that whole village like a residency village, and that be like a spark village, like sparking all the different creative things that are happening that are there? We see these animals all the time. I walk out in Dix every day. Sometimes you want to see, I didn't put that coyotes because, yeah, you think you're all alone, then you shine a flashlight and you see all those eyes, and that's kind of freaky. But there's a lot of animals in Dix still. A lot of them are being pushed out of Centennial campus, and so we're seeing more than ever. There's also more animals than ever getting hurt, run over, getting attacked, all kinds of stuff that's happening. So let's go with that too. Can we create some kind of a refuge? Can we do something that would actually honor all those animals, that could take care of them, but also educate us about them? I don't know how close I am to beavers, and I really don't know anything about them except for like the cartoon version of a beaver. And so, is there a way that we can actually get educated and start understanding how do we live amongst the wildlife as it's getting jostled around from all our development? So Pullen Park is a little bit crowded sometimes, right? As the city starts to grow, this is not going to get any better. So definitely one thought was, can we do Pullen Park Too? Because as soon as you're above 10 years old, your knees start hitting the seats in front of you on that little train and things like that. Where can we graduate to? What can we do next? Can we cross the street, by like the Moorhead School and come up through that area? And can that be Pullen Park Too? Where that's where the big kids go and do really dangerous stuff, a little bit dangerous stuff. Okay, Kirby Derby Day. So. Kirby Derby Day was originally conceived, as kind of a protest, about, what do you have to do as neighborhood president in the Kirby Street area? And it just started off as like a tongue-in-cheek thing that the whole neighborhood embraced and loved and made it really grow. The first year, we didn't really know what it was gonna be. So Carla Ray, incredible inspiration to us all in the neighborhood, said, well, I hope there's not going to be clowns, because I hate clowns. Carla, of course there's going to be clowns, right? And so we then had to go find clowns because Carla Ray hated them. And so as soon as we did that, then it was like, okay, well, if there's a threat of clowns, and there's this other group Carla was galvanizing called the anti-clowns. Well, then the anti-clowns, then there's people who didn't like that idea. It's like, we have to protect the clowns. So then there became these militant clowns that showed up to protect the other clowns. And it's really fun, like, you know, when you work with creative people, it doesn't take much, you know, for things to start amping themselves up. So year one, like coming over like one of the fences at a neighbor's yard became like this like Charlie's Angels group of like militant evil clowns, you know, coming to like defend the real clowns, which actually never existed, against the anti-clowns. So we had a lot of different things that happened. One of them was Bridezilla. I think we had, you know, Kirby Derby, and then, Beth, I forget what the second Kirby, like, the sequel, and then the third one was Bride of Kirby Derby, because, you know, we had to, like, follow some kind of theme. And then we had Bridezilla, and Bridezilla went missing for year 4, so Bridezilla was stored behind our house, and then in getting ready for the 4th Kirby Derby, she was gone. So through Facebook and everything else, we issued an Amber Alert to see if anyone could locate Bridezilla, and we got posts coming in that she was seen on Centennial Parkway. I mean, someone was like, and it's a giant creature, it was about 9 feet tall, but was somehow placing them all over town, and then you started to realize how much the town is really paying attention to Kirby Derby. So we had, you know, fighting robots and all kinds of parades, and the number one thing I'd like to kind of leave you with is that we have now an opportunity as a neighborhood, and I'm glad, Will, you're here, and Beth's here, and Dan, who's been supporting us. Kirby Derby Day has now been nominated for a national award by the city, and to Dan Bagley's efforts. So I'm flying to Omaha next week. We're a finalist for one of the top 4 neighborhoods of the year because of Kirby Derby Day. And Kirby Derby Day was just an expression of the local citizenry. All we did was just give a theme, give a loose structure, and let people be creative. It's been the underpinnings of inventive culture. It's gotten to be so big that we can no longer control the media. And last year we realized that there was no more just like word of mouth. This thing is in guidebooks and stuff like that. So on behalf of the neighborhood, we'd like to give this to the city. And for the city to flourish with Kirby Derby Day. And we've had some exciting news today about how that might really start to take shape. So stay tuned for that, but it just seems like, at least for our neighborhood, for our part, if you're gonna open source Dix Park, then let's each see what we can contribute, not necessarily demand, but what can we all contribute to it? For us, we wanna contribute Kirby Derby Day. Thanks all.
Raleigh, and we're piloting a project right now called Idea Raleigh, and basically it's a competition to have the community give us their good ideas. And there was one for citywide, and then there was one that was special for Dix Park that Kate and her team's been working with us on. So that's open right now. We have it down to the final 3 on each side. And Dix Park had a ton of, I mean, there's tons of people, so it's open right now. The website's Idea Raleigh at raleighnc.gov, and you can go there and vote on which one you like, but it's a pilot, and we want to do it, you know, we're looking at what we would do next time again too, but it just shows how many great ideas. Kate gets them all the time anyway, but we got to see a lot of them as well, so just one way that we're looking at kind of to have a little bit of an open space, but also knowing that, you know, recognizing as a city, we're government, we move slower, how can we kind of come together and use the space like Dix as a special place to be more innovative as well. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to contact me, or on the website you can get in touch with us too. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Yes.
So as you can probably tell, I'm old enough to have watched this discussion take place for a long, long, long time. And full disclosure, I'm a giant fan of Central Park in New York City, and I've over the years watched people play and recreate and run and bike and skateboard and everything there. So I think all these ideas sound awesome, and they sound fun and surprising and lively, and I love that it recognizes the past of the land. But I assume that there's, in this giant amount of space, giant for Raleigh anyway, that there is a possibility to intersperse all that cool, colorful, vibrant stuff with places that are shady and green and allow for reflection and sort of, conversation and all the other things that a big park provides in many places for residents of the city. That's otherwise, especially in a case like Raleigh, super hot and steamy and sunny and dry.
Really?
Well, maybe not dry, but all dry.
No, I think you're totally right. I think it's important to think about soaking the sponge in all the different ways that can happen. So yes, I think solitary time and private spaces and all those things. I really glossed over that because I felt like that was a little bit inherently obvious, but I think, yes, we need those places just as much as we need places that we can congregate and celebrate. So yeah, I'm just throwing out ideas, so I think that's another great idea to add to the pot.
So with a lot of the ideas you've been working on, one of the things I know we've talked about with Dix is the public engagement, reaching out. And what are some of the successes you've discovered through your travels in terms of how to reach out and gain that public engagement?
What's interesting is that a lot of people ask me in different cities to talk about SPARKcon, how they could do SPARKcon there. One of my answers has been, well, I'm not sure you can. I think Raleigh's a pretty special place that is exceptionally open to collaboration and easygoing. Sometimes I do wonder, is it laissez-faire city or is it lazy and fair city? I'm not sure which it is, but certainly if you put it out there that you want to do something, then I think you can get it done. One of the things that I think is the key elements of it, whether it was Keep Abreast or all the different projects I was mentioning, is that you need a firm vision about really what success is, and you have to lead by example. You can't tell people the vision is. You have to be the vision for creative professionals to get involved. Number two, you have to have a loose structure. It's like not so much something that tells you exactly how to do things. It's enough to know that you have to check off these boxes, that you have to do this stuff, and then you do training for all the things that are deficient. I found with those three elements, it doesn't matter what we were doing, the public really gets engaged. We've even done things facilitating like land development in Orange County, for example, where we were trying to figure out what to do with 40 acres of space where people were really contentious about what to do. In fact, there was a fist fight in the parking lot before we had our meeting about residents versus developers and all that stuff. But actually, when you sit down and go through like an actual process all the way together, it's amazing how well we work together. It's really incredible, and I think it happens more here than in other places. So I think it's really just having the courage for the vision, setting up that structure, and going for it almost more than anything else.